Hello and welcome. This is episode number 37 of the vCD Roundtable. Today's topic is going to be all around Tanzu TKG licensing, load balancer, and the newest challenges or unchallenges around it. But before we talk about that, let's all celebrate that we are all finally made it back home. I mean, there were tons of challenges on the way back from Las Vegas with flight cancellation, not cancellations, and whatsoever. So that's a good part. Everybody is finally in their home office. And let's start with a quick hello. Sasha, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So hello from my side. Welcome to our roundtable. Toby.
Hello and welcome to episode 39. Matthias.
37
Hello,
doesn't
I
matter.
welcome everyone to
37.
37, but I'm not as good in counting as Toby is, might be. So hello, and I'm so looking forward to all the stuff Sasha is explaining to us today around TKGs, M, Y, Z, ABC, whatever.
Yeah, I heard the TKGXY is the new big thing that's going to come next. Let's see if that's going to solve it. Good. Sasha, so what's the current status? I know we discussed before in previous episodes already some of the challenges. We now have vCD 10.6.1, which was announced to solve some of it. We also had the meetings with the Tanzu BU on our visit to Palo Alto just before Explore. Maybe you can share some light or shed some on where we are and how we
Yeah, so let's start with the informations about TKGm. So most of the service providers in the past who started to use with the Tanzu stuff with Kubernetes as a service, they started with ZSE containers, container service extension and TKGm. And with that, it was a good run, a good start combined with Cloud Director and NSXALB. But then there was an email in July that, TKGm is not longer supported because the business unit or the Tanzu business unit is becoming a separate part, so a dedicated part only for the Tanzu stuff. And with that, TKGm is not longer included in the VCF stuff. We had a lot of we had this one roundtable around that. We had a lot of discussions around that, and now we are informed that the service providers who want to use TKGm in the future, they need to buy dedicated licenses or subscriptions to do it. And as many of the service providers just started with TKGm, it's a bit difficult. So we can.
Sasha, if you talk about dedicated licenses, is there a minimum value in place or not?
No, there is currently, if you want to buy it directly from the Tanzu unit, there is a minimum value. Though they talking around about per partner about 250K per year with a commit of 3 years with VMware Tanzu platform to become a partner. That's a big challenge for many of the service providers. So what I got from most of the service providers, they are not really interested in the first step in the Tanzu platform. Yeah, they are interested in Tanzu mission control. That's an interesting point. Maybe Tanzu data services who are integrated in Cloud Director, and also Tanzu application platform, which will be integrated in the new versions in Cloud Director. So that's currently our information, but 250K, that's a number. And from that perspective, we asked, it is possible that, we or anyone else can do it like a white label, so commit to the dedicated course on Tanzu platform, and they can sell then also TKGm as a dedicated product without Tanzu platform. And that's maybe a solution for the future. So running TKGm again, because the benefit with TKGm is it's completely integrated in Cloud Director. It is from my perspective, the best solution to integrate Kubernetes in a cloud director with CSE, with NSX ALB. You can manage or you can provide your load balancer services directly from TKG. It will be automatically configured in your tenant, and you have the complete management around that.
Maybe real quick again on the TKGm. Even if a provider would be willing to actually spend the 250K, that does not solve. They would still need to buy RV load balancer on top of it.
Yes.
So in reality, compared to the old model where you had to pay a few points and everything else just for the extra features here and there, where you had a relatively easy entry into it, you now have basically a massive amount. So it's basically for those who are starting, the only chance is to actually bundle it with white label like with us in any way, because otherwise it's if you only have a handful of customers on it, it's basically impossible to actually offer this. Because like which customer is going to pay that much for Kubernetes offering? Is like there are tons of hyperscalers out there who would be more than happy to welcome you and roll out the red carpet for that.
Yeah, and that's a problem. So many of the service providers in the past used the standard ALB, not the enterprise version with web application firewall and so on. But as we all know, currently there is only the enterprise product, so the full ALB product you have to license. And in many production environments, I would say you need to go with at least 2 or 4 cores ALB, so have 2 service engines running with 2 cores each. So that's the default minimum configuration. Yes, it's possible to go with one service engine with 1 core, and that will be spinned up again if you're running it in a problem. But every time you want to, deploy updates and so on, you need a second license, or you need a downtime or a second service engine. And that's it, what it is. And with that, you need to go with at least 2 service engines normally. So then we have a second option. The second option was out before, also going with supervisor cluster, TKGs cluster, and integrate the TKGs cluster in Cloud Director. That requires that we have deployed the supervisor cluster in a vSphere cluster before we attach it as a provider VDC. That is a big requirement. And that's normally a real good solution, especially with the vSphere 8 update 3. There come more and more features that we can deploy more than one supervisor cluster and so on. But currently, TKG and TKGs clusters in VMware Cloud Director are unsupported with vSphere 8 update 3. And that's then the next problem. So that means Cloud Director only supports TKG and TKGs clusters with vSphere 8 update 2C or earlier.
Which then brings you into certain security incidents again.
That's it.
So in reality, basically, you currently have no choice. You either need to have a security risk or a not supported risk.
Yes, that's it. And we hope that we get a solution for that we can use in new clusters with 10.6.1. But 10.6.1 is out since 2 days, so released at the 9th of September. But there is no information in the release notes depending on the Kubernetes clusters. So realistic, that means the only way to go is currently with TKGm. It's currently not longer included in the licenses, so we need to take care that you get licensed, because if not, you will have a legal issue.
Okay. So to sum it all up, basically the service providers are doomed. except if they are running still vCD 10.5 something.
Yeah, but I also think in 10.5 it will not work with vSphere 8 update 3.
Yeah, but I could run vSphere 7.
And maybe.
Find me a reason to downgrade.
Yeah,
No.
downgrade is possible, but or downgrade of licenses is possible. So yeah,
But the big question then in the end really is like, what does the future have to offer here really for service providers in that space? Because it's like this is going on now for weeks or months, and it really puts up the big question: is like, is there really a future for the service providers together with the TKG offer? Because it feels almost like that no one really wants to take care about it. Or
yeah,
do
that's a big question. I also reviewed the last documentations from the website pages, but the last documentations are from December last year. So there is no update on the documentation stuff.
But such as it, you said it's not supported with, but it's 10.6 and 8 update 3. Because 8 update 3 with 10.5 is not supported anyway. So if you're still in Cloud Director 10.5, 10.5.1, you're still good because you haven't upgraded to update 3 in vSphere.
Yeah, but you will run in
note for all the funny for our followers. Cloud Director 10.5x and vSphere 8 has a snapshot issue, a revert issue. You cannot revert a snapshot. It's with engineering. But that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the next big question, as soon as we get TKGs back again in Cloud Director, is what load balancer do I want to use? Because currently I have two options, NSX and ALB, or RV load balancer is the new name. Yeah, and the big question is, what is the best way to go? So everyone told us in the past, hey, go with RV load balancer. That's the real way to go for the future with this product. Yeah, and now we discussed it a few days ago, and yeah, nobody knows what is currently the real right way.
So you mean the question, will the NSX load balancer really be deprecated? Or might the deprecation be removed?
Not really. Not really. The issue always have been there. ALB was never capable of providing network policies inside Kubernetes, which was the main point from one of the main advantages of NSX. At the end, but ALB is more capable on the load balancing side, so you can really do a layer 7 ingress on ALB, which was never possible with NSX. So this, at the end, the answer always have been, yeah, best of both worlds. So a mixed environment of having ALB and NSX in your Tanzu cluster would be the perfect solution. Yeah, but with the new license model, it's also there. It's really unclear how the procedure is there, because the documentations at the end, the documentations are available. The documentations are there how you can use Tanzu with NSX and NSX ALB or AVE in the combination. So to have TKGs and TKGm. Also for TKGm, it is there how to use Andrea as an
yes, but is it also there for CSE deployments?
Yeah, not for CSE. Yeah. CSE part was missing. Yeah, but I think it has been stopped related to the issue that currently nobody's really aware what is now the right way for the deployment of TKG X, I really say now X in Cloud Director, because
And addition, yeah, go.
Because we are always talking about Tanzu 2.0 on one hand, but at the end, the normal supervisor cluster, which is still there on vSphere 8, update 3, from my opinion, should be supported in Cloud Director 10.6.
It's normally more or less really clear in the documentation.
Yeah, I was just looking and it always refers to Tanzu 2.0, which is a
Well,
dedicated.
there's also another part, but what I will send it to you. But another point you mentioned here is the security parts out of NSX when I'm using the combination with Andrea and NSX. But that also means I need the license, so the distributed firewall license for my cluster.
Yeah, for sure.
That's also a topic we need to understand when I take the decision what is the best way to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sasha, if I understand you correctly, for all our dear service providers who are following this roundtable, do you understand right? If you're currently on a supported configuration, stay with it.
And make sure that you are get licensed to your environment.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I always forget licensing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, because in the past it was very easy. It was included. Also, ALB with the standard one was included. Only the enterprise needs to be licensed. And now the first problem for the service providers become with ALB, so they need to license ALB dedicated. And now the second one that you have need to license TKGm.
But I think it's also for those service providers who really want to do something with this, is actually reach out to your account managers and everything else within VMware and make them very clear that you need a solution for this, because you're currently basically completely up in the dark and you have no choice, because there is more or less no real viable option at the moment. You cannot really buy it, or at least not in a feasible or somehow reasonable way, especially with the 3-year commit. It's like, who knows how many Kubernetes cores they need for the next 3 years. That's completely it made sense for VCF, and I totally believe into the VCF system. All of that from a licensing perspective makes sense for me. With the add-ons, I'm already having here and there my issues, but especially when it comes to specific workloads, which are not even driven by the service providers, but by their customers, this gets into a completely ridiculous mode where it basically, if Broadcom, as much as we typically don't necessarily criticize them, if Broadcom wants to make any business in the service provider space with the Tanzu products and wants to get any market share into this model has to drastically change very soon, because if not, at least currently, I could not actually get any service provider to actually even take a second to think about investing anything into Tanzu or Kubernetes, because it's a completely unforeseeable future.
Yeah. And especially as containers are by their nature meant to be very fluctual workloads, like you have hundreds and the next day maybe just a few, and you spin up or delete worker nodes as needed. That's the system, right? So if yes, completely true.
And that's a big challenge currently.
Good. Okay. For me, sounds like a wrap. We don't need to actually spend too much more time on this topic. Anything else we've figured out after Explore and in the last couple of days, and for the future of everything around the service providers? No? Okay, then I need to do some shameless or selfless, shameless whatsoever advertising for our challenge days and architecture think tanks. So the challenge days are going to be hosted at the 8th and 9th of October in Frankfurt. Architecture think tank, I think on the 10th or 11th. Now, the way how Sasha looks at me, I need to look up the dates. No, they were correct. In Frankfurt, if you want to join us, we have a few seats left. Ping one of us, and we can actually let you know how you can actually join that. As a reminder, Challenge Days is really 2 days, completely hands-on experience, used VCF stacks and everything else, how you get there, how to work with NSX, how to work with the ARIA products around that, how to build products, packaging around this, for service providers. So we have a few seats left for that one. We will redo one in November in Munich. We even have first signups for that one as well. And there is the one and only architecture think tank coming to Europe for the first time. We will, I think, tomorrow release a short video with some customer statements from the architecture think tank in Austin, Texas. And so you can find those on social media and everywhere else. And if you want to attend one of them, let us know. If you want to attend both of them, let us know as well. We can certainly, for people who are attending both events, do something with the pricing. Seats are limited. Let us know. We would love to see you. Also, for those more from the international side, we will come to Chicago by the end of the month with a Challenge Days event and showcase that. And we will also repeat a Southwest event in Phoenix, Arizona before the end of the year. So a few more events coming up for service providers. We would love to see you there. Feel free to ping us, to call us, and then we can see what we can do to get you into one. That being said, those were my final words. Handing over to Matthias for his final words.
Yeah, so Tanzu will be challenging, but I desperately hope, as for many other things in the past, I desperately hope Broadcom will come up with a solution from a licensing perspective. Thanks. Toby.
Yeah, same from my side. Hopefully we can get final clear answers for the whole licensing in the near future, and really figure out how we can proceed with Kubernetes, because from my personal opinion on this whole story, it would be really sad to lose the ability of using containers inside vCD. So hopefully there will be a future solution. Sasha?
Yes, same like you said. Yeah, we need to make sure that you get licensed. If you have trouble with your licensing, have questions about the licensing, just ping us. Maybe we can see if we can bring enough service providers together to share the licenses. That's maybe an option. So if you are in trouble with the licenses, TKGm, ping us and we will search for a solution. See you.
Du bist gemutet. You are muted, Mr. Sandford.
See you and have a good one. I was just ahead of pressing the end button. Goodbye.